there's one thing that successful companies do when they launch endless customers. And that, my friends, is what we're about to talk about.
Join us for Impact Live 2024 in Hartford, Connecticut this October 14th through the 16th. Over 3 days, business owners, CEOs, and marketing and sales leaders will learn proven strategies to drive business growth. Attend expert-led sessions on marketing, sales, leadership, and AI, and get a chance to network with industry pros just like yourself. Discover how companies like yours are dominating their markets. Secure your spot at impactplus.com/impact-5. And for all of our Endless Customers listeners, we have an exclusive discount code that'll save you $100. So when you're on the checkout page, just enter the code ECPOD100 in all caps for $100 off. We'll see you there at Impact Live 2024 up in Hartford, October 14th through the 16th. Welcome back to Endless Customers, the show that teaches you how to earn trust and win more business in the age of AI. I'm your host, Alex Winter, and today we're joined by Chris Duprey, who is a principal coach here at Impact. Chris,
what's up, man?
Welcome back. Not much. What's going on with you?
You know, just lots of workshops, lots of talking to folks, lots of seeing endless customers in action, seeing artificial intelligence being used in it. So happy to talk about all that stuff.
You've been busy. So Chris and I are close friends outside of work, but I haven't seen you because you've been traveling. I feel like you've been all over the place talking about AI, teaching AI, working with clients. So we got a lot to catch up on.
Yeah.
And I think we got a good topic today because we're talking about endless customers, but more specifically, if someone's read the book or if they've listened to this show or they've heard you speak or heard anything that we've been talking about with endless customers, I feel like they're not sure what the best place is to start or how to get started right away. So from your perspective and experience, what's the best way to get things moving?
Yeah. So like with almost any initiative, right? So if you're going to go launch endless customers, think of this as similar to any other major change in your organization, because you're likely not doing the majority of the stuff that's in that would be considered endless customers, right? So we have to get everybody, and when I mean everybody in the organization aligned around what is this new thing? How does this new thing impact us? Why the heck are we changing our strategy, our philosophy, the way in which we go after business, right? And so you have to start that. Now, I've been a chief operating officer. I've run organizations. Lots of the times you have a strong-willed leaders like, hey, we're going to do it. And that's a recipe for failure. Because, think about when people resist or people don't fully engage. It's because they don't understand.
Yeah, that's definitely the main culprit. There's no buy-in because there's a misunderstanding or a fear.
Yeah. And so if we know that most initiatives go to die because of resistance or fear or lack of participation, well, the first thing we got to do is get everybody all fired up and educated on what it is that we're doing. So to answer your question, if we are going, how do I start my endless customers journey? I just read the book. I'm so fired up. I was so fired up, I made my leadership team read the book, and now they're all fired up. Like, what do I do? You have what we call an alignment day.
Okay.
Right? This is where, at a minimum, anybody that faces clients. Now, this is on the pre-sale side, the post-sale side, the customer success side. Like, if they talk to the outside world at all about the thing that you do, the products you sell, the services you render, they need to be there.
They got to be in this alignment day.
Along with all leadership.
Okay.
Now, I love having everybody there. So no matter what they do, they're there so that everybody gets the same education, the same understanding.
Got it. So it doesn't just have to be sales and leadership. Ideally, you want everybody in, because ultimately, if it's one team, one dream, right? If everyone's
Yeah.
tracking and believing in the same thing, it's only going to help expedite the whole process.
Yeah, and if you only put sales and marketing there, you miss, right? So you have sales and marketing and leadership. You're missing the fourth rung of the stool, which is customers. Some folks call it customer success. Some will call it customer service. Some call it operations. Whatever we call it, we're talking about the people that do the thing or provide the service or ensure that the product is delivered, like people engaging with the customer.
Right, exactly. They have their proverbial finger on the pulse of what's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
They all have to be there because everybody's got to understand not only what we're doing, not only how we're doing it, but more importantly, like why we are doing this thing.
The why is critical. So this alignment day happens. What can people be expecting during this day? Is it a full day? Like what does that look like? Can you paint that picture?
Yeah, so it's a full day. Ideally, ideally it's in person in your, you bring everybody together. If you're a remote organization, like I get it, it's likely going to be remote. But the idea is you get everybody together and there's two parts. So in the morning, and this is, we're operating off of, we're going to do this from like, let's say 9 to 5, right?
Yeah.
So first half of the day, the 9 to noon-ish part, let's say, is a endless customers training. This is where it's for everybody. So if you're worried and going, oh my God, I got to have everybody in my company, or at least all the client-facing people in leadership for a whole day, no. You need a solid 3 to 4 hours for them. Okay. That's the training. We'll talk about that in a second.
Got it.
The back half, whether you work through lunch or you do it after lunch, right? Doesn't matter. The back half is a planning session, which we'll go into that as well. Now that's for the leadership team and maybe some of the marketers.
Yeah, that makes sense though. The first half of the day is really like buy-in, deeper understanding, really getting a sense of the why and removing some of the fear, worries, doubts, concerns. And then the second half of the day is, okay, cool. Now that we get it, how do we apply this?
Yeah. Yeah. And so in the training, right, we're going to go over the fundamentals of endless customers, right? And we're going to really talk about those 4 things that we harp on in endless customers, that we have to be willing to say what others in our industry won't say. We're going to have to be willing to show what they won't show. We're going to have to sell in ways they won't sell. We're going to have to be more human than all of them, right? 100%. So we're going to talk about all of that stuff. And if you've read the book, it's really taking people through that story, understanding how it all works, and transforming folks from the sales team, from the service team, from the leadership team, from I'm a sales professional, I'm a this, I'm a that, to, oh, hey, I buy that way. Oh, wait a minute. So do my customers or my clients, right? So we help them see that, like, if we take, we're going to go through the big 5, right? The 5 topics that everybody researches when they're in the consideration or buying phase.
Buying phase,
right?
Exactly. Yep.
Everybody does it. The funny thing is that nobody knows that they do it until you show them the big 5 and you talk about them, and then you go, okay, so raise your hand if you've at least researched 3 of the 5 for something you've bought that was more than $500, right? And everybody raises their hand.
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody wants to know those things. That's why they're the big 5.
Well, and it's one of those things where it even happened to me. When you explain the big 5, it almost seems kind of silly when you start to initially explain it. But then when you start to go like, well, when you search and you do this, what questions do you ask? And then when it starts to all come together, it's like, oh yeah, you have that sort of light bulb aha moment. Yeah.
And listen, it's not because anybody invented anything really cool. It's think about the way that we interact with the internet and AI, right? Or things like Amazon, right? So unless you're going for a specific brand name of something, and even if you are, you might do this in Amazon too, but you go to Amazon, Amazon's got the big 5 there for you.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about different things, right? So the idea is we get people to see that, and we get them to understand how that applies to the way that people just interact with, let's call it digital, right?
Sure.
So AI, the web, search, tool, right?
But your like company's digital presence or imprint.
Yeah. And so how all that works and how that can then work for them, right?
Yeah.
And so we get everybody all fired up about it. We also make them all go do a little work, right? So it's, hey, so go break up into groups and start outlining, hey, what are the things you always talk about? Hey, what are the fears, worries, concerns, or issues that your buyers always have? What are the things you wish that they knew, right? And so you actually get everybody, because remember, it's not just the sales marketing team in there now. So you get everybody thinking about this and contributing in some form or fashion to it. And then you make everybody share it out so that they see like, oh, holy smokes, there's way more topics than we could think about. There's way more stuff we have to cover. I never even thought that we should talk about this or that.
Right.
But that's what happens when you do the Endless Customers training, which is the first half of Alignment Day. It gets everybody fired up and they understand not only what's going to make it successful and what's not, what's going to get in the way and all those things, but they understand how they can contribute, and they get to contribute on day one.
Yeah, which is huge. And people want to be able to contribute because it's important to feel like you're having a meaningful impact on what you're working on. And if you're passionate about it, which most people hopefully are in their jobs. But I think too, it goes back to trying to think about the customer first. So shifting the mindset from me, us, look at our company to no, let's really think about how our potential customers are interacting with our brands and how they make buying decisions and how we can meet them where they are.
100%.
Yeah. And that's Endless Customers 101.
Right. And so this is the thing is that don't expect them to have all read the book. Don't expect that. Right. So again, if we go back to your initial question, what do you need to do if you're that business leader, owner, CEO, whatever, that read the book and wants to get started? You need to start with that. Because if you don't start with everybody getting it from the beginning, it takes exponentially longer. So you're going to go look at the book and the typical journey, and you're going to go, I should be here. And the reality is you missed that first piece. Like you didn't learn how to crawl before you started to try to run.
Yeah, you're leapfrogging.
And it's just not going to work that way.
Right.
So even when somebody's like, had the whole company see Marcus speak at an event, I still mandate, if they're going to work with me, we're doing Alignment Day.
Yeah.
Because you heard the theory. Now we're going into how does this work at ABC Corp?
Totally. And how it applies to the specific business industry.
And how are we going to use it? And how do we get everybody fired up?
So once you get the buy-in, and we're going to go back to this because I want to hear some stories about, like, I'm sure some people buy in is quick and other people it may take a little bit longer. But for the second half of the Alignment Day, so once you get the buy-in, people are excited, people are tracking, they're like, yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down, Chris. What does the planning phase start to look like as far as like, okay, second half of the day, we're going into like, we get it, we want it, we have the capacity to do it. And now, like, how do you like formulate a plan around that?
Oh, so we do what we call a planning session. And this is, again, so when we think about Endless Customers, like you can do this with or without a coach. Strongly recommend that you use coaches, right? Because they're going to hold you accountable. I mean, same way that EOS, you should use an implementer, at least when you get started.
No, and accountability is the make or break in this situation. Right. It really is.
But so here's the thing is you have to start with what's the most important, which is where are we trying to get to? Where are we trying to go? So the planning session is broken down into a few sections. The first is vision. Where are we trying to get to? Why are we doing this? I ask a question like 2 to 3 years from now, what's the business look like? Think revenue, customers, staff, locations. I'll give a couple ideas and then let the CEO go.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. And most CEOs that I've met are visionaries, so they should have some type of an idea of where they see it.
Yeah. But so you start there. Then we might ask some questions like, okay, once we've unpacked that and really understand, so what needs to be true to make that and you get your team talking about from their opinion. So they've just come from the training And now we're going, okay, so what needs to be true? We're getting them engaged.
Yeah.
Then you take a look at, okay, so where are we towards that vision? What's our marketing and sales statistics look like? So we get a clear picture. And then we're going to take you into the Endless Customer Scorecard. We're going to cover those 5 topic areas. We're going to go through it. You're likely going to score sub 10, most likely, because it's very specific to executing Endless Customers.
And just for people who don't know out there, the scorecard's 1 out of 100, or what's the scale?
Yeah, so the scale, so it's 10 questions, 0 to 10. 0, we never do it. 10, we consistently do this over and over and over and over and over.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. So total score is 100.
And most people are coming in at...
Most people are coming in under 10.
Wow, okay.
Right. Well, so again, so you might be producing content, but are you producing the big 5 consistently and hitting these gates? Because it's very specific, right? So it doesn't matter. The whole reason we take you through the scorecard is twofold. Understand what success from what are the skills, habits, and activities that we have to master, right? So that is a learning moment as you go through the scorecard.
Okay.
And then 2, where is our current benchmark of where we're at? And as a coach, I tell people, I don't ever really care where your score is. Because traditionally we would like the score to go to the right. But let's say somebody leaves, something happens, a videographer quits or content manager leaves.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Your score might get reduced. Sometimes you might score too high and then realize, and so there's adjustments, but the idea is in these planning sessions, we set the score. And after we do that, we go over what your 3 to 5 focus areas are going to be. They're going to do a couple things. 1, they're going to start helping you move towards that vision.
Right.
And the second thing, they're going to give you very clear activities that you need to do. And third, they're going to be tied into moving you through the scorecard, which again gives you the skills, the habits, all the things that you need to master as you go and bring endless customers into your organization.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And you mentioned the word accountability earlier, and I feel like having the scorecard associates like actual numbers and data with it, so that like you actually have a benchmark to assess where you stand and what room there's for improvement and what's working and what's not. So you have a clear picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, listen, at the beginning of these things, you have to have the right ground rules set. Like this has to be a truth zone, right? Where we are sitting there and we're saying all the things and we're not holding back.
Right.
And then you really need an arbitrator on the scorecard, right? So when I'm coaching clients, I'm the final person that's picking the score.
Okay.
Because I see 2 things that happen. Mm-hmm. You either have folks that are so hypercritical, they'll never score themselves above a 5. And then you have folks that live in we're the best thing since sliced bread.
Up in the clouds.
Realm.
Yeah.
And they're like
10.
They're at 10 and you're like, you don't have a videographer yet or any videos produced, right? But so
yeah, and some of that's subjective, of course, right?
But that's why there's conversation, because the best thing. So I've been doing planning sessions for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's 2 sections that I love: the vision, because that's where we get to like dream. Why do we even do all these things? How does all this apply to the owner, to the leaders, to everybody else that's there? And then the scorecard. And the scorecard is because this is where, as a coach, I get to help facilitate conversations that may not be happening regularly, right? Because in the knife fight that everybody's in, nobody has the time to sit there and really assess, well, how well is our team leaning into all the learning and training that we've given them?
Right.
Like it may come up, but it's likely not going to come up as much as what's happening in sales or this big client issue that just came. Like there's always a reason. So these 90-day planning sessions which, by the way, we do these quarterly, so every 90 days.
I was going to ask you about that when the result is like, how long are we, is it quarterly?
So quarterly, so 90 days.
Okay.
And we can get into some of that, but the idea is every 90 days, we're checking in on the vision, how are we tracking to that? Mm-hmm. Right, because that should be why we've decided to change the way that we operate. We shouldn't just do it because Chris or Alex or Bob or Marcus said it's super funsies. Right?
It is fun, but that should not be the reason.
That should not be the reason.
That should not be the reason why.
It's just like, listen, when I talk about AI to people, I'm like, you shouldn't use AI because it's cool. You should use it for some outcome that you're trying to get to.
Right.
Right?
It's another tool.
It's a tool, right.
Exactly.
And we can get into that later. But the idea is we get to reassess that. Mm-hmm. And then we go into the scorecard and we talk about how we're doing. Yeah. Right? There's other stuff, when we're talking about second, third, fourth, fifth, we're going to go do what I call after action reviews of those previous 90 days. If you're familiar with Agile or Scrum, it would be called like a retrospective on those things. But it's, hey, what worked, what didn't, what we learned, and we have these discussions. Now, let's talk about why 90 days.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Yeah, why is it 90 days?
So a couple of reasons. So let's just like rip the Band-Aid. Why? Because the other business coaching methodologies that we've seen, Scaling Up, EOS, and some of the others, they all worked in 90-day cycles, and it works.
Yeah.
Now, why does it work? It works because it's doable chunks. It's measurable time. It's not too long that you lose focus, and it's not too short that you can't get anything done. Right. So I really like 90-day cycles.
Yeah, and it usually correlates with most businesses running quarterly cycles anyway. So
sure.
Yeah.
Well, and again, if you're tracking, so let's go back to like Endless Customers really focused on like sales and marketing and success, right?
Sure.
It's really easy to look at a month's worth of stats and be happy or sad.
So true.
And you could make but they fluctuate too much.
They do.
When you look at a quarter, you can start to see some trends. You get 13 weeks of data. It's just a better sized chunk of data to be looking at. Right.
No, that makes sense. And we just had Marcus on the show recently and talking about certain industries and companies have off seasons. So depending on what month you're looking at, it might be your worst month of your fiscal year because that's when you have your dip. So like you're making decisions based off of a month that may not be really accurate and telling the story of the whole picture.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we do these every 90 days. And the idea is that we get an assessment. We're always looking at where we're at. We're always tracking how things are going. And we're getting a new score all the time. The other side is that most of the ways to improve your skills, your habits, all this stuff is going to change. It's going to shift a little bit. So we need to go work on this for a little bit, but then we got to focus over here for now. Right. So these 90-day windows allow us to do that.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah. So after you map out the 90 days, you go through this full day, this workshop. What can business owners and what can people that do this expect as a result, or like as they start to move forward and implement this first quarterly plan?
So I mean, a lot of it's going to depend on where they start from, right? So
I know that like there's so many different industries, so like just like generally high level speaking,
So the idea is because everybody understands what the heck we're doing, you don't run into as many roadblocks or hiccups along the way, right? So when done correctly, you achieve you get your focus areas done, you see the gains. We have very specific things in our typical journey that while they might differ for some folks, I really want to make sure we've built the habit of publishing consistently, that we've got a backlog of content produced so that we never miss 3 articles a week as an example.
Right.
But so we start doing that. But if I'm the CEO, what should I expect? That the investment you're making is working because people are doing the thing and not resisting it. That's the thing.
That's huge.
That's the thing.
Yeah, ROI. That's what it's all about.
But it is, if there's only one thing, it is you remove the resistance because you've educated everybody and everybody knows how they fit into at least the plan as it starts.
Sure. That makes sense. And you work with a ton of clients, like we have established earlier here in the conversation, and I know you have your finger on the pulse here. So what, in your experiences, what have you seen from like a company that does an alignment day versus a company that doesn't in regards to like results and how quickly things ramp up? Do you have like a comparison?
I mean, I'll give you one that's going to be in the book. Works in Patrick Accounting.
Okay.
They were a client of mine like 2 or 3 years ago, before we mandated that you start with an alignment day.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a ton of resistance at first. And it just didn't work. Like it was, CEO, COO were into it, but the whole team wasn't. And so we stopped. It was one of those like, hey, no, now is not the time for y'all to do this. So back in December of last year, Matt and Mike came back to me and were like, hey, we're ready. We want to do it. Let's talk. And so I said, great, we're going to start with alignment day. Right?
Yeah.
And they were really the first full-blown alignment day the way that we just described it. And it's September right now. Mm-hmm. So we're about 9 months into what they're doing. They've redone both their company's websites. Their content manager is consistently producing 3 articles a week for both sites with a huge backlog. They did just have to hire a new videographer, but the sales team is using content, is role playing, is taking feedback. They're doing call watch parties. They're doing all the things that one needs to do to get to mastery of endless customers. Now, so instead of focusing on all these basic things, now we're like, okay, great. What are the self-selection tools that we can make to help people become more aware of us? What are the conversion rate optimization things so that we can really get the websites cooking?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we want to be. But if you asked Matt Patrick, the CEO, if you didn't do alignment day, would you be here? He would tell you no.
Right.
He would say it took me going to Memphis and sitting in their conference room with them and making everybody literally put their cell phones on a table in the back of the room so that we were all focused for the whole day.
Wow.
That's
okay.
right.
Okay.
And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And
the proof is in the pudding because you didn't do the alignment day previously.
And it didn't work.
And it didn't pan out. And now you're 9 months in and it seems to be tracking
and they're,
really
they're
well.
on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. They will be a case study for both their companies. Probably is one case study, right? But there'll be a case study someday.
Wow.
100%.
Wow.
In an industry that I would argue is not super sexy and people like it's one of those industries that people buy when somebody else is messed up or they've grown into, hey, I need to add on these services, right?
Right.
So it's not like a home improvement where everybody is always looking for that information.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
They're gonna have great success with endless customers because of the way they started.
That's incredible. Are there any other stories maybe you could share of people that have had success? They had the alignment day and it was like that was the beginning of their journey.
Again, there's tons of companies, but I would just say one of my favorite things was going through an alignment. They got the whole sales team there and asked one of the questions like, hey, what was the last thing that you bought? And somebody, I think it was a generator or something. They're like, no, I knew exactly what I wanted when I went in. So I just went and bought the thing. I'm like, okay, so you're the anomaly, right? Then I start talking about the big five. And this salesperson from earlier that was like, no, I just knew what I wanted. I went and he's like, so I did everything that you just said, actually. I just didn't think about it. He's like, I looked up how much these things cost.
Right.
And then I looked up what could go wrong. And
that's how they figured out their...
Right. And so, but it was this really funny. Like he tried to resist at first. And then as we went through it, he sat there and was like,
oh, I did do that. Oh.
This is, and then he's like, oh, well, but it was this great. It's like, oh my God, this is what our customers do.
And that's the moment.
And now as the coach, I just get to sit there and like try to hide the smile on my face. Cause I'm like, yeah, you get it now.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool. So for people out there watching and listening, what would you say is like the one thing from this conversation today that they should take away? Obviously, alignment days are critical if you want to implement endless customers, but what's like that one thing that they should really take away from what we've been talking about?
You have to get all of your customer-facing humans together, and you have to educate them why this is the strategy and the philosophy that you're going with. And you may be a preacher to the world, but nobody's going to listen to you in your hometown.
Facts.
So whether it is a coach from Impact or a coach from one of our partners, you need a coach to guide you through an effective alignment day so that you start correctly.
Well said, Chris. Thanks for sharing your stories and your insights on this. This has been a really great conversation. I love having you on the show.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you again soon, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think after a coat swap.
Sounds good. Well, for everybody out there watching and listening, this is Endless Customers. I'm your host, Alex Winter. We'll see you on the next episode.